Liz, tell me about your honeymoon.
Well, our honeymoon was, 6 years ago. We're old. And we went to an all-inclusive resort in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. And it was wonderful. It was the first time my husband had ever been out of the United States. So that was really fun. Also, too, I got married in November, so we went from snow to sunny tropical beach, which was also nice. And we barely left the hotel room. And when we did, I sat on the beach and read books. And since it was all-inclusive, there was a lot of drinking involved.
Yeah.
They had this wonderful thing called a Bob Marley. It was like a strawberry daiquiri, but it was like 99% rum. And then it was like a frozen drink that was like green, red, and yellow. And I haven't figured out what all the flavors are, but it was so good. Handy tip, if you ever go to an all-inclusive resort, no matter the time, bring your own cup. Because no matter the time of day, they will fill your cup to the top. So you could take a big gulp and at 9 a.m. ask for a mojito, and you will get a 64-ounce mojito.
Well, my honeymoon is in 6 months.
Yes.
And I'm going Paris. Because I'm a big old romantic. Well, that's what Karina thinks. Karina thinks Paris is romantic. I'm like, okay, let me tell you about revolutionary history. She has no idea what she's in for. But we're very excited. I just got my passport stuff sent off to renew my passport. Actually, the last time I was out of the country, it was into France. I was in Paris airport and subway system for about 3 hours, but I didn't actually get to spend any time in the city. I was in the mountains. So I'm very excited to actually get to spend some time
Do yourself
in
a
Paris.
favor and go to the Opera House. It's
well, obviously, I'm going to go to the Opera House and the catacombs.
Yes.
And all sorts of different stuff. I'm very excited. We're big on the like just explore and see what you find in places kind of vacationing. So I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Casey.
So raise a glass and let's get started.
Okay, Liz, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking hot chocolate because it is January. This is the month I am to meet my children. Oh, Lord. So I am so close to booze, I can taste it. What are you drinking, Casey?
Lambrusco. Rionides Red Lambrusco. It's sparkling red wine, and it's sweet. You would hate it.
I would probably despise it.
Well, I mean, maybe not right now. Beggars can't be choosers.
I know, right?
Today,
fetal alcohol syndrome is a thing, so...
It is a real thing. It is. Today we're discussing a book called The Unhoneymooners by... I should have looked this up beforehand.
It is a combination pen name. It's actually written by two women who... and I found this book because...
Christina Lauren is
Yes.
the name of the pen name.
Yes, I found this book because I have a friend who runs a book blog called Story Eyed Reviews, and for Christmas, she sent out a kind of a reader's guide to what book you should read next. And I followed it, and this was one that kept popping up. And I'm like, you know what? We've had a lot of heavy, emotional stuff reading lately. Let's do something
January is Enemies to Lovers month.
Yes, January is Enemies to Lovers month with some pining.
Yes. So this book is basically the premise of the book is that there is a girl,
Olive.
Her name is Olive, and she is
her twin sister Amy
is getting married,
and to Dane,
to a guy named Dane, and she by happenstance ends up having to take her sister's honeymoon. And then it's basically her and this guy she hates.
Yes, Ethan.
Together on the honeymoon.
So the book starts with Olive helping her, being the maid of honor in at her sister's wedding. And it says her sister Amy gets real lucky. Like, she's getting married to Dane, who's a nice guy. And he's handsome. She's like, the only thing problem I have with him is he's a little frat boy bro-y, but other than that, he's fine.
Yeah.
And so, but like her sister won everything for the wedding. Like she won her wedding dress. She won the bridesmaids' dresses in the contest. She won the venue. She won the honeymoon, which is why it's non-refundable and they can't change it. But they also won a seafood buffet for their reception, which when you're pregnant and they tell you to just not do buffets because they're cesspools of bacteria, you start to worry about something, especially if it's a seafood buffet. And so Olive has a terrible shellfish allergy, so she does not eat the buffet. And Ethan, who is the best man, and Dane, the groom's brother, does not trust buffets because they are a cesspool of bacteria.
Listen, I'm with Ethan.
I'm with Ethan
really
and
bad
Olive.
food allergies. I don't eat buffets because of cross-contamination.
I have done shows with you where there has been shrimp in a buffet on the other side of the room and you have broken out.
Yep. So I also have a seafood allergy, and basically what happens is Olive and Ethan are the only people who do not eat off of this free seafood buffet. And everybody else at the wedding gets food poisoning.
Everybody gets food poisoning.
And it's fast acting too.
Yeah.
I was expecting to read this and be the next morning she gets a call from her sister.
No.
It's I can't. It's they start vomiting at the reception. People are
in the middle of the maid of honor speech.
Yeah, in the middle of Olive's maid of honor speech. And we've already been introduced at this point to a little bit of the tension between Olive and Ethan.
Yes.
Because Olive had gone in earlier to Ethan and said, I need to see your speech.
To make sure it's not a piece
Make
of
sure
shit.
it's not a shitty speech, and he wouldn't let her see it because he was, in fact, ad-libbing the whole thing.
Yes, he was.
But the ad-lib was beautiful and
he's
very
bold of you
sentimental.
to assume I wrote anything down.
Yeah, so, and then he goes and he does his speech, and it's off the cuff. It's very sweet and heartwarming, and it just makes her even angrier at this guy. He's an incredibly good-looking, very smarmy kind of...
He just seems to dislike her for some reason, and she can't figure out why, because she's like, I've tried to be nice to you, and you don't like me, so I don't like you, and blah. And also, too, Olive has had a real tough last 2 months, because her roommate has moved out, so she had to get a smaller apartment. She'd lost her job. She'd gotten laid off. She had yet to find another job. She'd done interview after interview and had yet to find another job.
Yep. That's familiar.
And her sister's a little bit of a bridezilla, which, looking back, I realized I was a smidgen, and I apologized to all of my friends. I apologized in advance before the wedding that I would probably be crazy, and I'm apologizing later as well. But you all met my grandmother. You know why I was crazy.
I'm not going to be a bridezilla.
No, you're not. You're pretty chill.
I'm let's just be married at the end of the day. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so she is a little bit jealous of her sister. She's attracted to this Ethan because he is good looking, but he's also an asshole.
He's also an asshole.
And then, as if the day was already not kind of irritating her, Ethan gets up, does this perfect speech, gets all this applause, and in the middle of her speech, immediately following, everybody starts vomiting.
The groom throws up on the bride's dress.
Ooh, which was also free, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
Although, personally, I cannot imagine, winning a dress. Because it's, presumably you are wearing whatever dress they...
Yeah,
put,
I think it would probably be, you win a certain amount of money to spend on a dress.
Maybe.
Would probably
because I'm
be my guess.
I'm not about to be out here wearing, some poofy princess nonsense.
But then again, you're not wearing a dress, so...
Well, yeah. But, style... But I think anybody would agree. I mean, Karina bought 2 dresses before she settled.
Yeah.
People, the
but
style of the
Karina.
dress is kind of important to most people.
Yeah.
But the sister here, what's her name?
Amy.
Amy seems to take pride in, spending as little money as possible on this wedding.
It was a game to her to see how much she could win and not spend money. Because I think they said they spent maybe $1,000 on this wedding, which in retrospect is probably a good thing that they didn't pay a lot for the wedding.
Yeah.
But anyway, the
entire wedding party and guests all fall ill with this food poisoning, which is not the fault of the caterer. It's I thought, being a free seafood buffet, I thought it was going to be some
It'd
cheap
be a fault of
chintzy.
the caterer.
But it's apparently some sort of bacteria that is undetectable in fish and doesn't go away when they're cooked. So the fish that were caught were not tested for it.
So it's kind of the person who sold the caterer the fish.
Yeah.
It's their fault for not checking it, which is why we live in Kansas. We live in a landlocked state.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I have issues with seafood.
You know?
And also, too, due to over-farming practices, 9 times out of 10, you don't really know what you're actually eating.
Well, I don't have that problem.
You don't have that problem, but the rest of us
swims,
do.
Can't
but
eat
the
it.
rest of us do.
So Amy is very upset because the honeymoon was a 10-day trip to Maui. And she won that as well.
Non-transferable.
Yeah, it has to be the bride and the groom to take it.
Mm-hmm. Since Amy and Olive are twin sisters, they look alike.
They're identical twins.
Which
and
that was
Amy's
exciting
name.
to read about since I'm having identical twins this month.
Since they're identical twins, Amy convinces Olive to go to pretend to be her. Now they don't go so far as airline fraud.
No.
They don't use the tickets that Amy had prepared for it. They do buy their own tickets and end up on a very, very chintzy, like Spirit Airlines budget bites kind of flight.
EasyJet if you're in Europe.
Which is the kind of flights that I usually take. Yeah. Honestly. Because I am very cheap.
I think they described it as a Greyhound bus with wings. But since Dane also got sick, he sends his best man.
His brother Ethan,
because they had to have the same last name. So Ethan and Olive, enemies to the end, are now going on an all-expensive paid honeymoon trip together. For 10 days to Maui.
This is some fan fiction level bullshit.
Oh, it gets better, guys. And just buckle in. We've got more coming.
So, Olive actually was not even going to take the vacation.
No.
She's not a very good liar, and she's a little bit of a coward, not very impulsive at the beginning.
No.
But whenever she found out that Ethan was going to go, it's like, over my dead body, will he get to enjoy this vacation while I'm staying home taking care of
my sick sister.
And so she agrees to go. And they take a budget flight, during which she finds out for the first time that Ethan is in fact human.
Yes.
Because he's afraid of flying.
Which I feel like any sane person should be a little cautious about flying.
Well, he's very, very nervous about flying, like to the point that he probably should be medicated for it. Yes. Which she finds odd, because one of the reasons she doesn't like Ethan is because he's constantly swooping in and taking Dane on these big fancy brother trips.
Yes.
At important points in
Vegas.
Like Amy and Dane's relationship.
And they're all during like anniversaries or Valentine's Day or Christmas or whatever.
And so she thinks it's kind of odd that he's jet sets all over the country with his brother, but he can barely handle being on the flight with her.
Yeah.
And whenever she expresses this to him, he says that Dane always plans their brother's trips. Yeah. Which is not what Amy has told her.
No, Dane has always told Amy that, Ethan got these tickets. I don't want to let down my brother, blah, blah. She's like, okay, that's strange, whatever. But they check in the hotel. They do get the honeymoon suite, and then they have a fight over who gets the big, luxurious...
big
king-size bed. So, of course,
there was only one bed.
And there was only one bed. That's one of my favorite tags on AO3.
Well, the thing is, like...
Mutual pining, 4,000 words, there was only one bed.
The thing that's so funny about this is, like, as I was reading this book, I was thinking about... we read Red, White, and Royal Blue earlier this year.
Yes.
Which had similar premises. And these premises are, like, common... It's, like, tropes that are common in romantic novels... rom-com movies.
Yes, for
but
sure.
But also very, very popular in fan fiction. Almost to the point where I would say that I associate a lot of these tropes more with fan fiction than I do with like a rom-com.
I agree.
So, both with Red, White, and Blue and with this novel, I found
Enemies
myself...
to Lovers is another good tag on AO3.
Slow burn, yeah.
Slow burn.
I found a lot of comparisons that I was making to fan fiction that I'd read in the past.
Oh, yeah.
I
was reading this book while also simultaneously reading fan fiction.
I mean, who wasn't?
I mean, when you're as pregnant as I am, you don't really move around a lot, so I live in my recliner in the living room, so that is my world, which is my phone and my computer and the TV. So I was reading this while I was watching the Patriots lose.
So anyway, they fight over the bed.
Yes.
Olive wins. More by virtue of the fact that Ethan is willing to give it up to her because
he's a gentleman. She's like, no, you're giving it up to me because it was my sister's wedding.
And yeah, so she's really splitting hairs.
He's like, you're arguing for the sake of arguing, and she's like, whatever, it goes down to the spa.
I'll be honest, at the beginning of this book, I did not care for Olive. I felt like she was better between the two of them. Like, even though it was from Olive's point of view, And the book is, I believe, in first person. I don't remember.
Yes, it is.
I had it on
It
audio.
is. It's in first person.
So, yeah. The book's in first person. And so generally when a book's in first person, and I've talked about this
I know
before,
you have.
I'm not a huge fan of first person because it limits what you can see happening, but that can be used for really good dramatic irony.
Yes.
On the other hand, it also helps you to kind of relate better with a character. But I didn't feel that at the beginning of this book. At the beginning of this book, all of us talking about how awful Ethan is, blah, blah, blah. And maybe I'm just the kind of person, maybe I've read too much fan fiction. Or maybe I'm just the kind of person who shows affection for other people by being kind of snarky. But from my perspective, even though Olive was the one telling me how everything was going down, I was like, you're being too harsh on Ethan.
Yeah.
Like, he's just kind of going about his life and occasionally being snarky with you. But you, like, are ready to fight with him every time you talk to him. Like, you're the one who's not giving him a chance.
Yeah. But, I mean, we all have had those people where it's like, we see them and we're ready to throw down. They haven't even done anything, but it's like they've done enough to you that you're just so, like, anything they do is annoying. Like, look at that bitch sitting over there eating her crackers at me. You've never felt that?
The only person I've ever had an active dislike for like that was my fiance's last partner, and that was because I had feelings for her, and I never let that color how I treated him. Like,
well, you're a better person than I am.
You saw that I worked very hard not to treat him badly.
You did, which was more than he deserved.
I don't
he
really.
Also was one of those people for me.
I'm not going to say I don't ever have people that I just don't get along with, but, like, I try to take other people's opinions into consideration. Like, I try not to live inside myself, right? We're all so solitary. Like, even if we've got partners or friends who are around us all the time, like, I mean, Karina and I are attached at the hip, but, like, Karina's never going to know exactly what is going on inside of me at any given moment, right?
That's true.
Like, so we're all very solitary, which makes us inherently selfish. And, like, I try to keep that in mind as I go about my day-to-day life. Like, we're all very selfish. And so whenever I have an initial snap judgment of anything, I kind of stop and I'm like, okay, but what if you look at it from their perspective? And so it makes it, if you think that way, then it's a lot harder to just be like this. Like, I definitely have gotten into arguments with people, but especially since, like, even the original slight that makes Olive dislike Ethan seemed kind of imagined to me. Yeah. Like, she describes that the first time she met Ethan was at a state fair, and she had met him, kind of shook his hand, and found him attractive, and then she had gone away, gotten some cheese curds, and come back to the group, and was eating the cheese curds, and Ethan gave her a funny look.
Like, he was just disgusted with her.
Which is so subjective, first off. Yeah. Like, the way that someone looks at you is incredibly subjective. But it is also, don't say anything.
It's also stated multiple times that Olive is a little bit curvier than her sister.
Olive is curvier than her sister, but again...
It probably was enough that it just, like, struck her just enough that it, like, opened up all those insecurities for her.
Sure, and I get that. Like, she's... I understand that Olive is self-conscious, and, like, someone has given her a look that she has interpreted as hostile to her eating cheese curds. But this kind of goes back to Olive being a coward, is, like, instead of, like, addressing that and being like, do we have a problem? She just internalizes and assumes that this guy hates her with virtually no evidence.
Yes.
And then goes on to treat him like shit for the next, like, 4 years?
Yeah, it's a very Pride and Prejudice situation.
It's not Pride and Prejudice.
No.
In Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth actively heard Darcy criticizing her with words.
That is true. Darcy used his words.
Olive looked at Ethan, said, that man is criticizing me. I can see it in his face, and then decided to hate him. That's where my problem is. Like, if you hear someone criticizing you, or if you know someone doesn't like you, that's a different dynamic. But whenever you've just created the entire scenario in your head, like, not even being able to step back and be like, maybe I've overblown this. Like, at no point does she ever, until she starts having feelings for him, at no point does she ever say, was I overreacting or
Olive
imagining?
Also doesn't like to take responsibility for some of the stuff that's happened in her life. She just like, oh, it's like I have bad luck or blah, blah, blah. And instead of, she's like, I'm just really unlucky. It's like, maybe you just made some poor decisions that you just don't want to own up to.
Right. And, like, that's fine. That's a well-written character, but it just took me off guard because I usually the goal of an author is to make you like their main character.
Yeah.
And, like, right off the bat, I did not like Olive. I was not interested in her. I thought she was self-absorbed. And, again, I thought she was blowing things out of proportion with Ethan. Like, Sure, he said some things that were antagonistic to her, and there's other times whenever they're both actively hostile to each other that I'm like, fine, I get that. But there are a couple of times when she just goes off on this guy, and I'm like,
chill.
Doing literally nothing but like existing. Why are you being this way?
Well, and also too, she doesn't realize that Ethan sometimes is just teasing her just to get a rise out of her.
Yeah. And
My grandfather used to do that to me when I was little.
I guess that's the other thing, is that I relate more personality-wise to Ethan. I'm more of the kind of person who will say something snarky just to see a reaction, because I like people to react to me, which sounds a little egotistical.
But with Olive making poor decisions, she got offered a job right before she got on the plane.
Literally minutes before
she got on the plane. Accepted it, and then while she's at the spa, runs into her new boss.
Yes, she runs into her new boss at the spa, and he's very, very genial, very excited to see her. He's like, "Oh, my secretary told me you had some kind of away time planned. I'm glad you're taking time for yourself."
Yeah.
And then the massage therapist who had just finished her massage runs up behind her and
calls her by Ethan's last name because she's supposed to be her sister who's supposed to be married. And so she tells her boss, "Oh yeah, I just got married," instead of explaining the situation.
Because she's afraid that she'll get thrown out of the resort. And
because if the resort finds out there's been any fraud, they have to pay for the whole thing. And she doesn't have that kind of money because she's been laid off for 2 months.
So she just kind of panics, and she tells him she's recently married, and he's thrilled for her and invites her and her husband.
He and his wife are there for their 13-year anniversary.
30th year anniversary.
Yeah, 30th year anniversary, and is like, "Come have dinner with me and the missus." And so she tells Ethan, "I will give you the bed if you play along, please."
Yes, and Ethan, and see, this is another thing, is Olive's not very... Like, Olive is observant whenever she perceives a slight against her.
Yes.
But, like, in general, she's not very observant.
No.
Because, like, Ethan agrees to this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could tell you from, like, 2 chapters into the book that the misunderstanding came from Ethan being attracted to her and her misinterpreting it. Which is, like, kind of frustrating, but also kind of funny. It's that weird balance that rom-coms kind of have to walk. Yeah. Being like, all of this could be solved by some very easy communication, but we have to find
use your words
for people not to communicate. So
they go to dinner.
Ethan charms the absolute pants off of the other two.
And then they're walking back from dinner, and who should they find but Sophie, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, this is a level of ridiculousess that only exists in the Hallmark Channel.
The suspension of disbelief here is phenomenal. It's like, I can believe she ran into her boss at a fucking Hawaiian resort.
That's like a high suspension of disbelief.
But then the other person who's with her runs into his ex, who not only is this an ex, this is a very recent ex. They've been broken up for
6 months.
6 months, and she is
after they dated like 3 years,
and she is engaged. She's with a guy.
I think they called him like Bargain Norman Reedus or something like that.
Yeah, and she's engaged.
Named Billy.
She's engaged to a guy named Billy, who she has been dating for 3 months. So she started dating Billy less than 3 months after she broke up with Ethan, and is engaged to him within 3 months.
Well, it's something like they ran into each other at like a supermarket.
Yeah. And
he was stocking back to school supplies, so he's like, that was what? We broke up in July. Well, they didn't really break up. He proposed to her on 4th of July.
And she ghosted him.
And she like cried, took the ring, and then she's like, "Hey, I'm not feeling very well. I'm going to go home." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to stay." And then as soon as he got home from the barbecue, all of her stuff was gone.
Except for a whiteboard that she had written in Sharpie marker, "I don't think we should get married."
Ugh. Okay.
Damn, talk about kicking a guy when he's down.
I felt that down to my very soul because I have been broken up with over Facebook status before.
Yeah.
Which, this is a call-out post. Matthew, you're a piece of shit. I'm better now, but oh my god, I was so mad at you. Still kind of am.
Yeah, so after they meet Sophie and Billy and immediately fall back into the "we're a married couple" routine.
Yes, we're a married couple.
And it becomes like this weird keeping up with the Joneses competition between the two. And then when they go back to the room,
because they are grossly affectionate in public.
Yeah. When they go back to the room, Ethan kind of explains to Olive all of this stuff that's happened and like how this went down, and Olive kind of starts to feel a little bit of sympathy for him.
Because
like,
he did the big grand gesture.
He did a big grand gesture. He's afraid of flying. He turns out he's a romantic.
Yes.
And So Olive is having to come to terms with the fact that Ethan might not be exactly what she thought he was.
Yeah.
And this continues as they do all of the activities.
They go
because
snorkeling.
The thing is, the activities were all included, and all of the activities are for couples.
Okay,
so at first it is a situation of just like, well, we have to do these together if we want to do them. And that's when they go
snorkeling.
It's not called snorkeling. What's it? Scuba, whatever.
Anyway, they have to change clothes. There is a slippery bathroom incident.
They go snorkel. They do like a snorkel scuba combination thing. Unfortunately,
there is one bathroom.
Unfortunately, Billy and Sophie are on the same outing. Yeah. So they have to tolerate them. So Ethan is all high strung the whole time. And as they actually do the snooba, it's called snooba. As they actually do the snooba, Olive reflects she really enjoys Ethan's company. Like they're holding hands and swimming in the water and looking at all of the different coral reefs and fish, and they're really enjoying themselves. Well, they can't talk to each other.
No, they can't.
And then they get back onto the boat and have to change out of their swimsuits in a single stall bathroom, which they share. With a
slippery floor.
And of course, they both fall on each other.
Naked.
Half dressed. Yeah, it's a whole mess. It's another one of those.
It's a rom-com trope, yeah.
Yeah. And then they're very embarrassed. But that's the point at which Olive starts to admit, like, yeah, she still is physically attracted to Ethan. Like, he is a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
And she's pretty single.
Yeah.
And she's
very single. Ethan's very single.
She's aware of how attractive he is. And so then they introduce this like element of sexual tension to the whole thing.
Yes.
While they're still bickering with each other back and forth.
Yes.
But the bickering starts to get more playful and less barbed.
Yeah.
They start to learn a little bit more about each other.
More playful banter than bickering.
Yeah, than actual bickering. Which actually culminates in them starting to go and do things together for fun.
Because they want to.
Not so much because they have to, but because they want to. They decide, it rains one day and they decide to stay in the hotel room together.
Yeah.
And hang out. And then they go.
And then there's the couples massage.
They do the
Air
drive
quotes.
first.
Yeah, they did the drive.
So they go on a drive around they want to get out because it's raining, but they can't go to the beach. They can't.
No, so they take a drive around the island.
They rent a car and drive around the island, and then they stop.
They have a couple of soft moments.
Yeah.
And then they have dollar Mai Tais.
And
Ethan gets shit-faced drunk.
And he's apparently very cute, flirty.
Yeah, he tells the guy, he's like, hey, you want to know a secret? I like her.
And the guy's like, well, I hope so. That's
She's
your wife. And all
but
just like,
to be fair, Ethan drunk is Paul drunk.
Ethan drunk is very sweet. He's very friendly with everyone, very outgoing, and very much more open with his feelings about Olive. And amidst all this happening, Olive is having phone calls and whatnot with Amy.
Mm-hmm.
She speaks to Amy on the phone and asks her how she's feeling. She's still feeling horrible, but Dane is feeling better. Is he taking care of you? No, he needed to get some fresh air out of the house since we've been sitting in the house.
He went out for some guy time.
His wife is sitting at home with crippling food poisoning, and he's out with the guys. And Olive thinks that's kind of weird. But the problem is, now that she and Ethan have found kind of a truce, the only time that tension happens between them is whenever Dane gets brought up.
Yeah.
Because Ethan thinks the world of his little brother. Which, as a sibling, I tend to protect and defend my siblings to the death, even the ones who are assholes.
But Olive does the same thing with her twin sister.
Yeah, so that puts them at loggerheads, and so they're trying to kind of avoid talking about Dane and Amy as much as possible. And then they go and they have a couples massage. Now, this is not two massage therapists working on both of them at the same time as they anticipated.
Which was my couples massage on my honeymoon.
That's most couples massages. But this particular couples massage is one massage therapist teaching them how to massage each other.
So Ethan learns how to massage Olive and noises are made.
Yeah, Ethan gives Olive a massage and Olive is into it.
Yeah.
A lot. Very into it.
Very.
And
because they've gone paintballing already.
Oh fuck yeah, the paintballing. We forgot paintballing.
And if you've never been paintballing, paintballs hurt a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
So they go paintballing. They get their asses handed to them by
teenagers,
as is the way. But
is the way.
But they do get a little bit closer during paintballing, and like Olive kind of again notices how fun and carefree Ethan is.
And it's really helping her get out of her comfort zone to do all of these things. She's getting more confident.
Yeah. And so after the paintballing, they've gone and done this massage. And so Ethan gives her a massage. She's into it. She's super like...
Noises are made.
super into it. Super like wanting him. And
Ethan gets to fondle her butt.
And she does not give Ethan a massage because she's basically liquid by the time that hers is over.
Yes.
Which the massage therapist says is usually the way this thing goes. And if they were an actual couple, you're pretty sure they'd have gone back to the room to just ravish each other. But because they're not, Ethan leaves her there to get redressed and resettled.
Yes, because he's a gentleman.
Because he's a gentleman, and it's not spoken of again.
Nope.
And then they get... When do they get drunk?
I think it's that night.
Yeah, it's later that night they get drunk.
Yeah.
At dinner together. And they end up sleeping together.
Yes.
Which is, at this point, just like, you're like, well, duh.
Duh.
Like, they've been kind of, dancing around it this whole time. And so they sleep together. It's great. It's a good time. They go to breakfast the next morning. And
there's mangoes. And Ethan says something about, this reminds me of the girl that Dane dated who had the mango tattoo on her ass.
And he was like, it was like 2 years ago. And she says, well, but...
That can't be true because...
Amy and Dane have been dating for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but they weren't exclusive until like the last year, or like after he asked her to marry him. And she's like, that's not what Amy thought. And he's like, did Amy tell you that? And she's like, well, no. And she's like, well, maybe Amy just didn't want you to know because you have stick up your ass about everything all the time. And
which is not the best thing to say.
No, it's not great. And then this is exacerbated because Sophie is at breakfast with Billy, and Ethan is giving her a lot of attention. And again, this is another case of Olive just like jumping to the worst possible conclusion. That's like, oh, Ethan slept with me because he needed to rebound over this girl, and now he can like...
Yeah.
She clearly wants him because he's not available anymore, and so he can get back together with her, and then I was just nothing, and Ethan's like...
But at this point, she does actually use her big girl words and says something about it.
I mean, after he pushes her to.
Yeah.
Because she's being so mean to him, and he's like, okay, so what did I do? And when she explains, he's like, I was kind of enjoying rubbing it in her face that I was with a super hot chick now that I like. Which is another thing that completely distracts Olive. She's like, oh, you think I'm super hot? It's like, yes, that's what I've been telling you.
Yes.
I've been attracted to you the whole time, but Dane told me
you were off limits and that you're bitter about everything.
Which is another...
Which is really kind of shitty of Dane.
Yeah, well, and now Olive suspects that Dane said that because he was afraid that if Ethan was dating Olive, that she might hear about the shit that Dane was getting up to that he shouldn't be getting up to when he was in a
because she knows her sister, and she knows that her sister would never agree to an open relationship.
Yeah.
But Dane is like, oh yeah, no. Dane had told Ethan that Amy
and Amy were casual.
Yeah, he and Amy were casual, and they had an open relationship until he proposed.
So Ethan is inclined to believe his brother, and Olive is inclined to believe her sister, who hasn't actually said anything to her.
And
so like there is still an element here that like Amy could be willing to have an open relationship and just didn't tell her sister because she knew Olive would be judgmental about it.
Yeah, and so Olive decides
to not talk about Dane.
To not talk about Dane. She also decides not to say anything to her sister because she's like, that's not really any of my business. I should leave it alone. And
so then the conversation kind of changes over to, are we doing this for the rest of the vacation? Or...
Is this just a vacation fling? Do you want to do this when we get back? Because their vacation time is coming to a close.
And they decide that they do want to keep seeing each other.
Yes.
Once the vacation is over.
And so they have a lovely last days of vacation. and everything's going well, so they go back to Minnesota, and they get back there, and Amy and Dane are there to see them with a welcome back from our honeymoon sign. And they see them kissing. And they're like, what just happened?
Yeah, so they have to explain this. They were kind of trying to plan out, like, when they were going to talk to
they were going to tell them
this.
the next day after they got back, so that way they would have one more night of peace.
But that plan goes out the window, and Dane seems kind of alarmed by this.
Yeah, Dane doesn't like it. It's very clear that Dane, even though he's trying to, like, bro it off, is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and so I think Ethan says something along the lines of that, like, Olive's cool, like, you know, and Olive kind of goes along with it, but she feels like she's, like, agreeing to some sleazy secret pact to not talk shit about Dane to her sister, and she's kind of uncomfortable with it, but, again, she pushes through it, and this is the point at which I do feel like Olive is, like, being reasonable, like, there's more, like, there's a lot more
she's trying
evidence
to be
that
really,
what she's thinking is correct, but she's taking the time to, like, you know, analyze it and, like...
Because she knows if she says something and she's not 100% sure about it, she could alienate herself from her sister. She could...
Her boyfriend.
Her
brother-in-law.
She would lose her brother-in-law, her twin sister, her boyfriend. You know, she could lose a lot if she says anything.
Yeah.
And she's not 100% sure.
So she opts to not say anything. It's going to be fine.
Because, you know, she finds out that Dane is the one who wanted to go on all these trips during these important dates. Dane was maybe cheating on her sister before they got engaged. Dane has been kind of lying.
Dane is the one who told Ethan not to get involved with
Not to get involved with Olive. So, like, these are all check marks against him.
She's basically like, I don't like Dane, but I am going to tolerate his presence for the benefit of my boyfriend and my sister.
Yes.
Which is a pretty familiar story to anybody who's ever had an in-law.
Yeah, pretty much an in-law they don't get along with.
So, everything is kind of fine. She goes to start her first day of work, and
she comes clean with her boss.
She comes clean with her boss about the vacation, and he says, you know...
Because she's like, you know what? It's the right thing to do.
And his wife hosts a, like, spouses club that they've invited Ethan to.
And he fires her on her first day of work.
He fires her. He says, you know, if you had told me then and there that you had taken your sister's vacation, like, that's not a lie that I feel like is lacking in integrity. Like, I get that. Like, that's a lie that anybody would tell. But, like, to sit across from me for an entire meal and lie to me and my wife about your relationship with this person, that just shows a lack of integrity that I'm not comfortable with whenever my entire company is built on integrity. Which I get, and I kind of respect that.
To be fair, she sells pharmaceuticals, so that's not exactly an integrity-filled job.
Well, I mean, this is kind of different than what she had been doing previously. And again, this guy had, like, she had to sign a morality clause in her agreement, like, all this stuff. Like, I don't think he's out of line. Like, no. I think it would have been perfectly within his rights to go either way on it. Yeah. But to Olive, it's a huge blow, and she's pretty upset about it.
So she's lost her job, and her whole family comes over. She's got, like, she's...
she goes out for drinks with Dane and Amy and Ethan. But Ethan and her get there together, and then Dane shows up.
Amy's going to be an hour late because of her nursing job. So she's like, whatever. Ethan gets up and goes to the bathroom, and this is something that I live in dread of with my daughters. Dane, while Ethan is in the bathroom, is like, hey, you know, I'm glad we're cool and stuff like that. You know, you and your sister, you're twins. If you ever feel like swapsies sometime, you know, just to mix things up, I'm down. And I'm like, that is the most disgusting thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Because I know, like, identical twins are a fetish, and I'm going to protect my daughters from that as long as possible, but that was just the moment that I'm like, I'm going to throw up a little, and I'm going to take this character, and I'm going to bash him over the head with a coffee mug or whatever the heaviest object close to me is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
And also, too, this is her boyfriend's brother.
Yeah, it's her boyfriend's brother.
And her brother-in-law, her sister's husband, who just propositioned her.
Yeah. That's the real issue. Like, there's not anything necessarily inherently wrong with swingers or swinging as a concept.
No.
But, like, this is something that he is saying behind the back of his brother, behind the back of his wife, to a woman who has not expressed any interest in him. Like, and they both have expressed that
exactly.
they are
If all parties are consenting, who cares? But clearly, she is not.
Yeah, no, there's these are both relationships that are anticipated to be monogamous, and this guy is out here saying this and propositioning her. So she gets up and leaves. She's very angry.
She's very upset. She's very angry because this only just proves that Dane probably was cheating on her sister. Mm-hmm. Because she has already asked her sister about, were you kind of having an open relationship? And she's like, no, why would you even ask that? She's like, nothing, no reason.
And so she tells Ethan, she gets out of the parking lot. Ethan's like, what is going on? And she tells Ethan what happened, and he doesn't believe her. He
tells her, you probably took it the wrong way.
You probably took it the wrong way. Which, in Ethan's defense,
yes,
she is known to do. And like the entire anonymity in their relationship when they first got to know each other is because she took something the wrong way that was not just made an assumption. So like in his defense, I get that. It's his sibling. But to her, it's devastating because this is the person that she trusts.
Because she flat out tells him, she's just kind of like, what would I have to gain by saying this? Why do you think I would just say this for fun? I'm not saying this for fun. I'm saying he propositioned me, and it made me very uncomfortable. And even if she did take it the wrong way and it made her uncomfortable,
it still made her uncomfortable,
and Ethan needs to talk to Dane about it.
Yeah. But Ethan doesn't really want to deal with it, so she says, I think we should be done with each other. And she goes home, so now she successfully lost her job and her boyfriend.
In 24 hours, she has lost her job and her boyfriend.
And it gets worse because she calls her sister.
Because she's like, I have to say something.
Well, her sister comes over the next morning.
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh, you left early last night because they said your head was hurting. So you left early, and she's like...
Ethan left early, too.
And so what's going on? And so she tells her what happened with Dane, and Amy doesn't believe her.
No, and then she tells her about, look, I think Dane also may have been cheating on you while you were dating because of stuff Ethan said. And she's like, now that I've gotten to know Ethan, a lot of these boy trips just don't even make a lot of sense. So she's trying to tell her sister...
But Amy does not want to believe it.
Amy doesn't want to hear it because she's just gotten married to Dane.
Yeah. So she basically...
She leaves and so in the span of 48 hours, she has lost her boyfriend, her job, and her twin sister.
Yeah, and so she's not doing great. The rest of her big Hispanic family comes over.
Yes.
Starts cooking for her, kind of trying to take care of her. They get her lined up with a waitressing gig at one of her cousins' restaurants.
And she actually likes it a lot better than the job she was previously doing.
But she's still not talking to Ethan. She's still not talking to Amy.
Still not talking to Ethan. Still not talking to Amy.
And so she's pretty blue.
She's left Amy a couple of text messages that she's just kind of like, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here.
This is the part in the rom-com movie where there would be a montage with sad music over it.
Yeah,
like
this is
the
the rom-com sad music.
It's like the misunderstanding has happened and now we're waiting for it to get resolved. But first we have to be sad for a while.
Yeah, we have to be sad for a while. So once she's done being sad for a while, she gets a text message from Amy. And she's like, Dane went out last night and left his phone.
And I went through it. And do any of these names sound familiar? I think one was like Trixie and Julia and Cassie. Yeah, something like that.
And she's like, they all have recent text messages to Dane. And she's like, and Olive is like, I'm so sorry. What do you think? What do you want to do? And she's like, I don't know what to do. Can you just come over tomorrow? I'm going to text them.
And so...
Which, by the way, if you are a serial cheater, never leave your phone at home.
Don't give people advice on cheating, Liz.
Well, it's also true on making a murderer.
Anywho, so she goes over to Amy's house the next day, and she and Amy like get drunk and watch a movie. She doesn't know what Amy's done.
Yeah.
And then we find out Dane gets home, and Olive
And she's like, hey, sweetie. And Olive is like, go fuck yourself.
Off, Dane. And Dane's kind of like, okay. And he like goes about his business. And then the doorbell rings. And Amy's like, Dane, can you get that? He goes to the door.
Which I love what Amy says. Because there is this woman at the door. And she's like, Dane, what's going on? And Amy sticks out her hand and says, hi, I'm Amy. I'm his wife. Which one are you?
Yeah. So she has called all three women from Dane's phone. She has texted them and asked
said,
them
hey,
to meet
up
here at this time. And so all three women have showed up in the driveway. And she also texted Ethan.
Yeah.
And so
the first one that show up is, she's like, what do you mean, which one am I? I'm Cassie. I'm his girlfriend.
None of these women are casual flings. They all thought they were his monogamous partner.
Yeah, and she's like, what the hell do you mean you're married, Dane?
So Dane is outed to all of his mistresses.
And his wife.
And Ethan.
And Ethan, yeah.
Amy's there, or Olive is there to witness it all.
Yep.
And so then Ethan tries to talk to her, and she's like, I don't really want to talk to you.
I don't really want to hear it.
And closes the door in his face.
I don't really want to hear it.
So Dane and Ethan come and pick up all of Dane's stuff. And he moves out. And
I think it's more that Amy's family shows up and shoves all of his stuff out on the lawn.
Yeah, they move all of his stuff out, and Ethan and Dane take the stuff and leave.
Which the moral of the story is, do not cheat on your monogamous relationship.
Yeah,
don't do it.
And Olive still doesn't want to talk to Ethan.
No,
she doesn't. She's really mad at him.
She's taking some time to figure out herself.
So she's,
she's waitressing, and
doing
she's
her
like,
new job. She started like learning, she started learning a new language or something.
Yeah,
like just kind of working on herself, just kind of trying to try some new things.
Take some responsibility for her choices she has made instead of just chalking it up to bad luck. She's like, no, I made a bad decision.
And so she's working in the restaurant one night,
and who comes and sits down but her old boss.
And his wife.
And they're like,
who clearly is not happy that he fired this girl.
Because she's like, oh, I think you might be happier sitting in a different section because I don't want this whole evening to be awkward for you. And Molly is just kind of like, yeah, honey, she probably doesn't want to wait on someone who fired her on her first day. Of work. So it's like his wife clearly takes Olive's side on this one. And she's like, and you're still trying to fill that position.
And so they move to a different section, and when she comes back to that table to clean it up for the next people,
Ethan's sitting there.
Ethan is sitting there wearing a
terrible Hawaiian shirt,
sunglasses, and a terrible Hawaiian shirt, drinking a Mai Tai out of a big plastic Mai Tai hurricane glass.
He's trying to grand gesture.
He's trying to do a grand gesture. And she's not super into it.
Like, she's like gonna like get a hold of her cousin who seated him and be like, what were you thinking?
And so she's kind of trying to get away from him, and he's like, listen, this was horrible and shitty, and I was horrible and shitty, and I'm sorry.
I should have believed you.
And even if I didn't believe that you had interpreted the situation correctly, I should have been in your corner, because that's what my job is as your boyfriend, and I love you, so
and I love you, so take me back, please.
And so,
but they fall into their usual banter.
And she basically agrees to take him back, at which point it is revealed that everybody in the
entire family is sitting there with false mustaches
and hats. They all pop out and start cheering.
They're like, yeah!
It's a whole ass thing. It's like, wow.
Which, by the way, that reminded me of my mom, when I was a teenager and stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, before you could drive yourself places, my mom would take me on little dates with my boyfriends, and she'd be in the background, and we just get the glint of the glasses and the background of all the photos. I'm like, oh, there's Mom.
Yeah. So, so she takes him back.
And then we have an epilogue 2 years later.
Then there's an epilogue 2 years later. They are with Amy and her new boyfriend,
Dr. Lucas.
Dr. Lucas, who is
a friend of Ethan's.
Ethan's doctor and friend.
Yes.
And they have gone to Hawaii for vacation.
Yeah, and
Olive wanted to treat Amy to a vacation in Hawaii. So
yeah,
she got
Olive's
hers.
got a conference in Maui, and her new job that she has is she is a advocate for vaccines.
Yeah, a vaccine advocate.
Vaccinate your fucking kids.
So she and Ethan and Lucas and Amy are all on vacation.
All on vacation in Maui.
Ethan has been...
And the epilogue is from Ethan's point of view instead of Olive's.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I've got a ring in my pocket.
So they spend the whole day ziplining, and he's trying to find a good time.
Yeah, they have like 4 or 5
pose.
days.
And they're sitting on the beach, and Amy and Lucas have wandered off, and he thinks this would be the perfect time.
This would be a perfect time, and so they do a little selfie, and he's like, "Oh, what should I caption it?" And she's like, she said yes, or something like that.
Can you believe how hokey it would be to propose to somebody on the beach like this? And Ethan's like, and she's like, "Oh shit, were you gonna propose to me on the beach?" And he's like, "No.
And so,
and like he's afraid that she's gonna say no.
Yeah.
But what the real situation is that she's just being stupid, and like she wants him to propose to her.
She thought Ethan was going to propose as soon as they went back to Maui, and she's like, "We've been here 4 days and you haven't done it, so I'm going to do it." So Olive proposes to Ethan.
Yeah.
On the beach in Maui.
It's pretty cute. And so
and he's like, "Well, this ring isn't going to fit me." And she's like, "Ah!"
Yeah. It's very cute. It's a very... I feel like when they wrote this book, they were like, I want to write a rom-com into a novel.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, romantic books definitely can have rom-com elements to them, but like this one like felt like instead of writing it as a script, they wrote it as a novel.
I swear to God, this book belongs on the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah, it's very fun. It's a very lighthearted, and I mean, you can't take it too seriously. Again, I was like, I didn't really like Olive.
You can't. This is not a serious book. There's a lot of suspension.
But
it was fun. I read it in one afternoon.
Yeah, I read it in one sitting. I had a ton of fun with it. It was just kind of silly. And
my husband thought something was wrong with me because I was making noises like it was a Jerry Springer episode.
Like giggling and stuff, yeah.
Like giggling and being like, "Oh, that rat bastard, he's been cheating on Amy."
Yeah. So it was fun. How many bottles would you give it?
I'd say 3.5. It was a good. It was a good time.
Yeah, that's what
it was a good time. I wish I could have read it with a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And like, because I read it with my feet up in my recliner, which is where I live now. But I wish I could have had like my little glass of wine. Instead, I had like my water and my tubs.
Well, 3.5 bottles. It was fun. If you like rom-coms, you'll definitely like it.
Yeah, it was definitely fun.
And it had a lot of read.
It had a lot of the good tropes. The classic, they don't like each other because of a misunderstanding, enemies to lovers, the pining, the drama filled, and the big
declaration.
Yes, the big declaration, the big gestures. The suspension of disbelief was a little high for me because I'm like, the chances of like the ex-fiance and the boss and the cheating sister's husband, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a little bit soap opera-y.
But like, again, it feels like a rom-com. If you were watching it, you would probably not question it at all.
It's one of those things that's like, it's so bad, but it's so good.
So yeah, if you like the sound of it, you should check it out. Again, it's called the Unhoneymooners, and it is by, I've forgotten already.
It's an L and a C name.
Christina Lauren, which is which is two best friends, whose names are Christina and Lauren, who write together. So check it out.
Definitely.
If you liked what we did here today, hit us up on Patreon. We got babies and marriages to think of.
Yes.
Also, you can find out more information about our podcast on literaturepodcast.com, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
It is January now. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the next episode, but we may be having a little bit of a break or something a little bit different.
Yeah, shorter episodes
for the month of February.
For the month of February.
Our next book for the end of January will be Rainbow Rowell's Carry On. So keep your eyes open for that.
Enemies to Lovers season, folks.
And January is Enemies to Lovers month. So keep your eyes out for that, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturepodcast.com or check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation. Cheers!